Welcome to Vancouver Business Network, where entrepreneurs learn, network, and grow. I am Roger Killen, the organizer. Our weekly workshop for entrepreneurs is brought to you by TELUS Business. The fastest and most reliable pure fiber broadband network in Metro Vancouver. Our speaker this evening is Carla Rieger. Carla is the co-founder of Mind Story Academy, an international online school. Carla teaches business owners how to access genius levels of thinking and how to communicate their offerings in powerful ways that get strong results. Carla has written no less than 4 books and over 80 online learning programs on mindset, presentation skills, change leadership, and creativity. Vancouver Business Network members and most welcome guests, it's time now for you to put your hands together and give Carla Rieger the welcome that she deserves.
Great. Well, welcome. Welcome everybody here. And the top 3 mindset habits of high achievers who are entrepreneurs is our focus today. And this is based on 11 years of research of all these habits we saw, the people we coach. We've been coaching people for 23 years, and we whittled it down to these 3, that if you had these 3, it was a one-stop shop for a lot of good things. Many of you probably have them. Many of you have a background here in personal growth and coaching, but I find if you get these 3 right, everything else works out. So they are the ability to choose your state, and some of you are answering that question, how do you switch your mindset, and then how to change your perspective at will, and then how to change your capacity at will. So let's just start with the first one, and I'm going to ask you a question in a moment to see how well you do this one, which is to choose your state, as opposed to letting your state choose you. And that happens, right? Sometimes you wake up in the morning and it just feels like this state became you and you feel like a victim to it, right? And then it just doesn't go away no matter how many times you walk your dog, play with the cat, throw water on your face or whatever, it's not going away. So what are the things that you can do to actually shift it and maybe shift it for good, right? So I want you to think about the last time you rode a roller coaster or something like a roller coaster that throws off your center of gravity. So this can help you see how you are when change and challenge come into your life. Because if you think of people riding roller coasters, you see the spectrum of behavior, right? On one end, you have people who hate it, and then people who are indifferent, and then people who love it, right? Now, you can always find people like me on the end of hate it, right? It just didn't want to go on, right? And someone dragged me onto that ride there, which is at the P&E. Has anyone been on the P&E ride? Yeah, old rickety 1953 wooden, scary as heck kind of thing, yeah, right? And so I had somebody drag me on. Now, if you don't like roller coasters, you just feel like they're very unsafe. Which of the cars that pull up are you most likely to take? Feel free to.
Last one.
The last one or the middle kind of safe, so you're not the first one that crashes, should it crash, right? So I got in the middle near the back, and then the handlebar came down, and I grabbed onto that for dear life and gnarled myself up into a ball of tension, hating the whole thing, like literally looking down, and then praying till it would end. And then when it was over, threw up.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one way to ride the roller coaster. But there are people at the other end who ride the roller coaster in a different way. They would not choose the middle back car. Which car do they like to take? The front one. That's right. They want to be the first one down the hill. And as soon as they're going down the first hill, what do those people usually do? That's right. They let go of the handlebar. They don't need the handlebar, and their eyes are open usually, and they're leaning into the ride, and they're screaming, they're laughing, and as soon as it's over, what do they usually do? They get in line, they go again, right? And I thought, I kind of secretly wanted to be one of those people because I figured it would have carryover into other areas of life. And so I was speaking on change, flowing with change in San Diego in front of 900 people. And I sat around afterwards with some colleagues and they said, look, there's a roller coaster across the street. Let's go. And so I said, oh, I don't like roller coasters. You guys go ahead. And one of them says to me, yeah, but you just spoke on flowing with change. And I said, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with it. They said, no, really, it's a good metaphor, right, for change and the ups and downs of life. And so if you're going to speak on change, you have to love the roller coaster. They said there's one thing that makes all the difference from going from hating it to loving it. One thing. Does anyone care to venture a guess what it was? You shift your state of mind, but there's something that preceded the state of mind change. Anyone know?
You breathe deeply.
That helps.
You choose to like it.
You choose to like it? Yes.
Okay, your state, your energy, and your mood feels better.
Yes, but something gets you there first. Yes. One left.
Change your emotion of fear to excitement.
Yes, but Eric, something precedes all that stuff, which is?
Let go.
Yes. You got it, Toyota, yes. You actually let go first, and then all that changes. And I said, no way, like I will die if I do that. But they said, look, people do it all the time, right? Does anyone here like riding the roller coaster hands-free? Okay, so you know this to be true, right? So I get in line, I'm waiting in line. They put me in line from the front car, right? I'm gonna be the first one down. And then I'm waiting, and you know how the cars come up and everybody piles in, and then you kind of watch, and it goes up the big hill, and then you hear blood-curdling screams as it comes down, right? And then the cars come back, and I swear to God, there's like 2 people missing, because that's what I'm thinking, right? And then finally it's my turn, and I get in there, and I go, okay, I'm not gonna hold on. My friend's next to me going, okay, we're gonna let go. We go up the hill, you know how it makes that little sound as it goes up, and then you get to the top, and right at the top of the first hill, it sort of waits for a moment before it hurtles down the track. And so I'm just about to do it, but the girl behind me goes, oh my God! And so I grabbed on into the handlebar, and I'm hating it, and I'm feeling sick, and I'm going down, and we get it to the top of the first hill. My friend's yelling at me, you gotta do it this time, you gotta let go. So I pried my hands off the handlebar, we went down, my eyes are open, went down and up and down and up and down. And by the third hill, I'm laughing. I'm like, this is fun. I'm having a good time. And as soon as it was over, I didn't need to throw up. I thought that's so weird because I always throw up at things like that. And so I wanted to go again. So I went again, and I loved it. And the whole thing was great. And I love roller coasters ever since. And I thought this had a really interesting ripple effect in other areas of my life. And now, see, I take people with me. I call it roller coaster therapy. And this is a colleague of mine. And I said, okay, we're both going to go hands-free. And he chickened out and he held on. So I said, let's go one more time. And I will hold on and you let go. And he had a really good time. And I didn't feel so good afterwards again. So it really proves that theory that it's you let go first. It's a physical thing. You have to trick your mind to shift your mindset. You have to trick it at a what I call a core subconscious level. And it has had ripple effects in my life, right? It's like, you know, oh, wow, 5 people are sick today and I'm covering for everyone. All right, right? No money in the bank. You know, that let go and go with it, right? It's the part that everybody has that if you just switch into it, you can change your state in an instant, and it totally opens up your brain capacity. And we all have our little ways of doing it, but the more habits you have like that, the better, right? And what we found was that high achievers lean into the ride and go hands-free when life brings them, you know what, the challenges and change. So just think about that for yourself. Now, there's many mindset experts here, so you probably know this Albert Einstein quote that says, you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that
created it.
Yes, created it in the first place. Exactly. Yes, well done. And so because of that, we often forget, we think, if I can just change those people out there or that thing out there, then I'll change my mindset. But of course, we know that it never works like that, right? But we forget, even people who teach this, and I coach people who teach mindset, forget to do this. It's so easy to think it's out there, right? And so every moment, every day, right, you face confusion, doubt, overwhelm, feeling unsupported, or you could, the dark and cloudy road, or you can go down the road of focus, supported, trust, and clarity. But if you try to will yourself, does it work? Right? Have you ever woken up having kind of a grumpy day and some well-meaning person that lives with you says something to you like, hey, just lighten up already. Don't be so grumpy. Does that help? No, you kind of want to kill them, right? So it's not an intellectual exercise, as many of you probably know. Sometimes you can will yourself and just go, I'm just going to put on a smile and shift my attitude. But for most people, it doesn't stick very long if you do it that way, right? You have to do something a little bit deeper. And so interesting brain scan of the survival brain versus the whole brain. Now, most people, the survival brain is that little brain right inside. Most people spend most of their day in survival brain mode. And you don't think you are, but so much of society is like deadlines and you're being distracted here and there and traffic and big to-do lists. If we looked at your brain, we'd see that it was more focused on the survival brain. But anything you do that opens up the brain, like even if you were to go like that on the roller coaster, even if you were to sit where you are right now and do that, your brain capacity would change. So just try that right now, right where you're seated. Just go like that and say these words very loudly and proudly. I'm depressed.
I'm depressed.
Okay, good. And now lower your hands and notice if that made you feel depressed. No. And if we could look at your brain scan, we'd see that the whole thing just lightened up. And a lot of people said exercise helps them shift their mindset. So or breathing, right? You have to do it at the physical level. And so interestingly, this is a really interesting fact. You have to rewire your neural pathways if you don't want that stuff to keep coming back, right? We all have the doubt and the procrastination and the feeling of overwhelm, all those things, the lack of confidence to sell your business, the fear of getting up in front of a group, right? We all have that all the time. But sometimes, if you notice, some of them go away and never come back, right? And some of them keep coming back. Why do they keep coming back and why do some go away? So it's really useful to know the difference. It's because you've rewired your neural pathways on some of them. So how do you do that? Well, as many of us know, it's the repeated actions which become habits, which become subconscious programs, which are those new neural pathways, right? And so a lot of what's out there in terms of coaching, we find to be it can be about the conscious. So you're always using your willpower. So here's an interesting question for you. I want you to answer this question. Your brain doesn't care if you focus on doubt or certainty, if you're on overwhelm or feeling clear and calm and at peace, right? What does your brain care about? Does anybody know? Survival, yes. Yes, someone said consistency. I say it's kind of like efficiency. The word efficiency is the word I would use. So if you tend to worry about money, for example, and you've worried about money for a few decades about your business, am I going to have enough money, right? Often entrepreneurs feel that way because there's no regular money, right? It's very easy. So you've practiced worrying about money and you have this really strong neural pathway. You've become very efficient at that. So then you go, I'm just going to stop worrying. No, the brain goes, no, I'm good at that. I don't want you to stop doing that, right? So you have to get it. You have to go to the gym and make it efficient at trusting that there will be enough income, because what happens when you trust that you personally can generate the income that you need? you tend to do the things you need to generate the income. If you're spending all your time thinking, I can't generate that income, and what if I can't generate that income? How are you looking at the world?
From scarcity.
From scarcity. Yeah. Yeah. And so we just forget that, right? And so here's one thing I want you to think about. What is one business issue you have right now? I know many of us have many, and even if you haven't started your business, it could be like a job issue, right? So it could be a deadline you have, a big project coming up, anything that makes you stressed, anything that you loop about, that thing you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about, that one. Right? So just pick one. So here's my question for you to see how good you are at this. So you get your one issue in mind. Got it? Here's your question. Do you know your ideal outcome? Okay, good. And there's a certain way that to think about your ideal outcome that makes it more effective than another. So it has to be an ideal outcome that you have control over, yes? And it has to be specific enough yet wide enough that your brain goes, I can be efficient about that. So if you have your issue, it's kind of like being at the bottom of the mountain, and then you have your ideal outcome, it's the top of the mountain, it creates this magnetic draw from one to the other. Now, I know many of you know it's important to set goals and create a vision, but what I find is even people who teach this stuff cannot come up with their ideal outcome. They have their issue, and we get really, really addicted to our issues and like to talk about them a lot and ruminate on them a lot. And I ask even people who are supposedly really good at that, I said, what's your ideal outcome? And they're like, I have no idea. So see if you can do it right now. So on your handout, that looks like this. If you could, you feel free to do this right now. I find that if you write these things down, it actually helps write the neural pathways. That's why I gave you a little fill in the blanks process. And we keep these things as simple as possible because we find if they're simple and don't take any time, people will do them. If they're complicated and take a long time, people don't do them. So these are some really simple things that people have told me made this massive difference in their life. So just on the first page, you would write down your issue, and then you're going to write down your ideal outcome. Most business owners stay focused on their issues most of the time. If we could look at your brain scan and if we could read your thoughts and have a printout, that's what most business owners do. What high achievers do is they stay focused on the ideal outcome, and they keep thinking about it. So here's the way to write it. So you say, I can't seem to choose a business focus, so that's your issue, say. You'd write it with the words, I somehow, that's how you start it. In this case, find a way to choose the best business focus and get into action on it quickly. So feel free to write that as I'm talking. I'll give a few more examples just so you get an idea. So I somehow is important because why people don't create their ideal outcome is usually because they go, well, I don't know how, so I can't come up with an ideal outcome. But if, we're in Vancouver and you wanted to go to Seattle, you would just say, I want to go to Seattle. You don't know how yet, right? So I somehow, and what you want on the other end. So who's got one? Just curious, is like one person want to throw it out? Yes, Michelle. What's your ideal outcome? What's your issue and ideal outcome?
Oh, so my issue is I don't have an effective way to find the specific ideal client that I'm after.
Okay, you don't have a specific way to find the specific kind of client you're after. Okay.
Yeah, which is like you, basically.
People like me. Okay.
Yeah, people that have online programs that are maybe there, that are in the mid 500,000 a year. And
Sure.
And I somehow find an effective way to find them in roles.
Yes, perfect. That's perfect, right? So does that make sense to people? Now, I want you to actually, once you write it down, see how you feel afterwards. Like if we could see your brain scan, we'd see your brain open up, right? Your brain would go, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to effectively find these particular people. And all of a sudden your thoughts, even when you're sleeping at night, your brain will start to go to this genius level, thinking about, and you'll wake up in the morning, you go, oh my gosh, I know who to call. I'm going to call Carla and ask for all her friends in that category. She knows, right? You'll start thinking like that. So what many people do is they'll write out an ideal outcome every day for 21 days, and then you'll start automatically doing it in your head. But if you write it on paper, it's the physicality of writing that puts it into the body and makes you start doing it up here. Yes, question?
I'm not clear on how is it different than just writing your goal or something like that.
There's something about saying I somehow, oh, sorry. Michelle was saying it's not clear how it's different than just writing out your goal. It's different in that if you say, I somehow, you've put yourself into it and you haven't identified the how. Because sometimes when we get really locked in the how, it shuts your creativity down, right? I somehow, and then create a big enough container, the brain wants to be efficient and jump into it. And what some people do is they do an ideal outcome based on somebody else, like something else changing, like the economy changing. And that's beyond your control, right? I somehow make my business work within this. Yes.
One quick question. So you know how you said I somehow find a way? Can it be I find a way? Does it make a difference?
I find if you use the word somehow, it makes the part of you that goes, yeah, but we haven't done it yet, so I don't believe you, open to it. We don't know yet. It's just somehow, right? Yeah, okay, one more question.
Yeah, okay, so it said I don't have the capital to keep going with my business. Well, like the employee mindset would say they are so in that employee mentality of, living below their means and don't want to spend the money, don't want to use the credit.
Yeah, it's hard to change other people. So you don't want to use this to change other people. So the question was, what if other people won't change, I think.
Yeah,
So it's only what can you do to create an environment in which they might potentially change. For example, I somehow create an environment that my employees are more motivated to succeed, for example. Yeah.
And the ideal outcome.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so just a quick example. If you do have employees, thank you for bringing that up. This was a coaching client I worked with, and he said, I can't get anything done because all my employees come to me every day and they have all these issues and they want me to fix them. And so I said, why don't you do this little activity with them? So he gave them all this sheet of paper. I said, before you come to me with your issue, you have to write out your ideal outcome. And what do you think happened? They stopped coming to him because they figured it out themselves, mostly. And so it empowered them and it gave him free time to do what he was really wanting to do. Okay, so let's look at the second one. That's just an example of a habit that helps you create your state in an instant, but there's many. But that's just the most popular one with our clients. So the second one is the habit of choosing your perspective instead of, say, sweating the small stuff, which many of us tend to do when we're in business and drive ourselves crazy. So you've all heard of the great metaphor that is the glass half empty or is the glass half full. And, there is this myth out there that high achievers are, I see the glass is half full, I'm an optimist, and that low achievers are pessimists. But that's actually not really true. I'll tell you what is true in a moment, but I just found this really interesting study done at MIT that revealed that a pessimistic attitude toward life is actually linked to one specific blood type. So I don't know if you know your blood type or not, but it turns out to be B negative. Sorry, that's a bad joke. That's not really true. But we have a model we call the Avara model, and that's one of our coaching models that we teach. And so I'll use the glass half full as a teaching metaphor, as it were. And so these are the 5 steps, and it came together actually because my husband's been a coach for 20 years. I'd been a coach for many years, and we came together and we started, seeing each other's coaching models, and mine was very feminine and his was very masculine. And we found actually when we brought them together that they actually produce even more results. So that's why it is this way. So there's a fill in the blanks process if you want to take that home with something and see how it works. And the first part, as it is in many coaching models, is you just acceptance. So in this case, I'll talk about, say your naturopath, your doctor says, you should drink more water. You're dehydrated, but you don't like water because it does, for all your reasons. So you just accept that you don't like water. Because here's what most people do is they have an issue, but they don't know they have an issue because it's subconscious. They just know they're not doing what they want to do, but they don't know why, right? And so if you can really be honest with yourself about what it is, then that's the acceptance part. Now, this is a very simplified version of the model. So the second is vision, right? We often do that. We go, this is what I have and what I don't like that's going on. This is my vision. So we just did that with ideal outcome versus your issue. And this is where you have your vision. Well, I want to be not just drinking more water. What's your ultimate vision, right? That's I want to be healthier, right? So that's that part of the model. The next one is action. So usually at that point you go, well, that's my goal. I'm going to drink more water. So you drink more water. But usually it doesn't stick if you only go that far. So that's why we had this part in called the reprogram. And that's where you figure out what is the meaning behind drinking water for me. Why don't I like to drink water? Well, in this case, it doesn't taste good to me, water, and it's boring to drink water, right? You have to explore that. And I could go back to my childhood and say I lived in this house that had rusty pipes and I was drinking, water full of lead and it wasn't good for me. And so that helps you then create your attention on what would be better, which might be purified water with lemon that makes it more interesting, and to focus on all the health benefits. So that's just a quick and dirty version of the Avara model. But we find if people can go through those 5 steps and do something that's very repetitious in terms of the attention. And so that's why we do a lot of self-hypnosis with our programs to help people over and over and over and over and over again, build that muscle, build that muscle, build that muscle, because you're dealing probably with many cases of having 10, 20 years of your mind being very efficient on a way you don't want to be, right? And so one thing that really helps people become high achievers, of course, and to write those neural pathways really strongly, very quickly, is to explore your why. Now, I know many people here have probably explored their why, but here's what I find is that a lot of people think they know why they're doing their business, but then when they explore it a little bit deeper and they peel off some layers, they find something very core that when everything, the chips are down, that keeps them going in a way that nothing else does. And so there's a process in here that will help you maybe peel off some deeper layers. Because as Les Brown says, if you know the why for a living, you can endure almost anyhow. And so let's ask those questions of you right now. What made you choose to start a business? So just thinking that to yourself, why did you choose to start a business? Or if you haven't started yet, what is driving you? And usually people say things like, well, I don't want to have a boss. I want to not have a cap on my income. I like the creative freedom, those kind of things. Usually I find those are surface levels and they can motivate you so far. If you can get a little deeper, what's important about bringing these offerings to the world as opposed to other offerings you could bring? Like, why have you just thought about video, for example, or why have you chosen YouTube, as opposed to all the other things that you're probably very talented at and could be doing, right? So what was it? Some often it's a story in our background, right? Something that happened around that really got you inspired and lit up, right? And so it's really obviously good to tell those kind of stories. And why do you continue to face the obstacles and not quit? So I want you to go back to think about some morning you woke up and you go, oh, why am I doing this? Right? And what made you go, I'm just going to get a job. I'm going to quit. You didn't do that. You decided to keep going. What was it? What was it? Because if you can hold on to that and really dial up on that and really write that neural pathway very strongly, it doesn't matter what's going to come at you. You're going to be like a locomotive and burn through all that stuff, right? And so that's what this little process in here does. And then if you can get down to the core values underneath that, it's like gold. It's very powerful. And so you'll see a list of a whole bunch of different, a whole bunch of possible values. And so you just go through, this is a bit of homework for people, is you go through, say, and pick your top 10 values and see if you can whittle it down to 3 that really drive you. That really, if you have those 3 values going on, then you're a happy camper, right? And that helps people change the way they do their business too, right? Because you might be doing things in your business that don't have anything to do with your values. And then you go, well, why am I not liking my business? And then you switch and you give that stuff away to somebody else and you focus on the values that you love. And then your love for you doing your business comes back. So I suggest take 15 minutes to do this. I've seen it change people's lives dramatically. It's very powerful. You can try it with other people. Let me give you an example of how it played out for me. It was literally night and day when I did this process. I started out actually in my 20s going around doing motivational presentations for college students and helping them do different team building activities so that they wouldn't feel so lonely on campus. And then I started doing it at conferences and companies. And so back when I first started out, I decided I would put my shingle up and teach fun as a team building tool for workplaces. Crickets, like nobody wanted it. I thought, why? And they're like, I'm sorry, we're not going to teach our employees how to have fun. We want them to work, right? But I had all this research, right? So that the team that plays together stays together, right? The people that, were less gossipy, they had more productivity, they got along better, they didn't show up late, they didn't quit, they made more money for the company. But that didn't really help. But occasionally I got, some clients because they did maybe have a team that had this habit of focusing on the negative, right? And so if you have a team that's habit of focusing on the negative, you got a lot of politics, a lot of gossip, a lot of people showing up sick, right? And so people would hire me and I would do a fun team building day. And I was doing one in Savannah, Georgia. Has anyone been to Savannah, Georgia? Yes, some people, one person. Big Spanish moss hanging from the trees, very hot, very humid. It's right on the coast and everybody speaks like this. It's lovely, the accent they have. And so the organizer took me out for dinner and she said, that was such a fun day that we did together. I just so wonder why you chose this profession where you marry, work, and play. Why do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I never thought about it before, right? But it made me think, right? And she'd give me this mint julep. So I'm drinking this mint julep and my brain's starting to float. And I was like, yeah, well, I come from the non-fun family, right? I come from a very, what we'd call humorously challenged family, politically correct term. They just didn't value play, humor, fun. I remember hearing something at the dinner table. I'm like grade 5, or I heard it at school. I'm at the dinner table. I say to my mom, Mom, why don't cannibals like to eat clowns? I don't know, dear, why? Because they taste funny. It's a cute kid's joke, right? My mother says, that doesn't make any sense, dear. Clowns don't frequent the jungles of Africa where cannibals would be found. So you just eat your beans and be quiet now. So that was life at my house. And so I followed in my parents' footsteps, and I thought, okay, I'll just be really goal-oriented like them. Like they were immigrants to Canada. They were working really hard, trying to get a million things done every day. And so I just became like them. And I went through 7 years of post-secondary education and 3 part-time jobs the whole way through. And then everything shifted when I did a public speaking class. The dreaded public speaking class. I'm the youngest person in the class. I wanted to be a lawyer. So I thought, I got to take my public speaking class. And I'm up there. And I think you were talking about the knees knocking and everything and the paper rattling. And my whole face is scrunched up. And the woman who's running the course is sitting in the front row right about where you are. And she says, she's from the Bronx. She goes, stop. Honey, please, just hold on a moment. How old are you? I'm 23. Why? Well, because you act like a 45-year-old insurance underwriter. I mean, you are so serious. If you're this serious now, what are you going to be like in 20 years? I mean, you should lighten up now. People want people a bit lighthearted when they do public speaking. So you go lighten up, and then you can come back to my class. Get off the stage. I'm like, really? Okay. I had to get off the stage. She gave me some ideas. Off I went, had to leave the class. And I'm driving home thinking, maybe she's right. I mean, all I did was work. All I did was study. I did have no fun life at all. And I was looking at pictures. And I found this picture of me having a really good time. So I'm in the corner there. Everybody else is laughing, having a good time, and I'm like at a funeral. And I thought, okay, maybe she's right. I'm a bit too serious. So I took an improv class, comedy improv. Anyone done comedy improv? Yes, fun, hard though, fun, hard, right? But the good thing about comedy improv, it's like whose line is it anyways, kind of games, right? And you spend the whole afternoon laughing, right? And just laughing for a few hours at yourself and others just totally changed me. I was more relaxed. I was more creative. I didn't worry so much. All these things changed in my life. So I started doing 2 classes a week, and then 3 classes a week, and then 4. And then pretty much I left university, much to my parents' dismay, and I started doing comedy all the time. I just did comedy improv, I did clowning, I did comedy writing, and I started my own comedy troupe. And we went around and we did all kinds of fringe shows and everything, and we were having lots of fun doing that. And I was taking my bow at the end of a show, and there's this woman in the front row. She stands up, she gives us a standing ovation, and then I realized it was my public speaking teacher. And she comes to me afterwards, she goes, I see you took my advice. That was very funny. Sounds good. You can come back to my class now. And so we were talking, and she said, you've changed completely. I can't recognize you, she says. And we were thinking about the before and after. And so I realized that before, at the time that I first took that class, there was a whole bunch of things that were true for me. So for example, I was worried a lot, and I had this low-level depression, and I had low resilience, right? If I made a mistake or somebody rejected me, I would just be down for the count for a really long time, right? Lots of health issues, even though I was 23 years old, pessimistic, looking at the world as the glass is half empty, not hopeful about the future, slow learner too. I was dyslexic, and I was very lonely. I had no friends. Opposite, a few years later, trusting, happy, high resilience, just bounced back from setbacks, way healthier, much more optimistic and hopeful, quicker learner, dyslexia disappeared, and more connected to others, lots more friends. I thought, wow, it made such a difference for me. Heck, I'm going to teach this to others. And so I was telling her this, the woman with the mint julep, and she was like, oh, you got to tell this as a story, because I really get it, how important it is to do that. And so after that, I started telling that as a story whenever I taught it. And not only did it make other people be more interested in the subject, it made me more connected to my why and therefore more resilient when I had 20 no's for every one yes. And I just barreled through, and my business just took off. It tripled within 6 months because of connecting to my why. And so I tell you that because I just really like you to do that little process, 15 minutes. I've seen it change people's lives very profoundly. So that brings us to number 3, which is once you change your state and once you change your perspective, what tends to happen? Boom, the whole brain lights up and becomes far more high capacity. And so, as opposed to letting your capacity choose you, which can happen sometimes, we make dumb mistakes when we're overwhelmed, right? When we're panicked, when we're worried what other people think, when we're doubting ourselves, we make dumb decisions, right? So if you wake up any morning, if you leave with nothing else and you wake up and you're feeling like there's some negative state that's overcome you or some negative perspective, do not do anything in your business until you do say one of these tools or any of the tools you know, and just take a few minutes and turn them around, because I tell you, your whole day will go differently. And I know some of you know that, but I know it's just so easy to go, oh, I've got a million things to do. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do all these things, but you're doing it in a certain state of mind with a certain perspective that's going to lower your capacity, and you're just not going to be your best. And then what's going to come back at you is not your best, right? It's not, the universe shows up in that way, right? So I want you to answer a question here and do tell the truth. Don't be influenced by peer pressure here if you know somebody in this room. But raise your hand if you would call yourself an artist. An artist, yes. Okay, lots of people. Cool. What about creative? If you didn't say artist, how about creative? Okay, we have almost everyone. That's good. Now, I asked the same question of a group of kindergarten children. And how many hands do you think went up? Are you an artist? 100%. 100%. Yes. They all said, yes. I can sing, I can dance, I can paint, I can do it all. And then the older the child gets, the hands come down. And then you ask adults, and you know, entrepreneurs are different though. There's more hands as opposed to tax attorneys. Not so many. But there's no tax attorneys here. But it's just, as Pablo Picasso says, we're all born artists, right? And the trick is to become what I would call an entrepreneurial artist, right? Because while you're working on your business, while you're doing the part of your business that you love, if we could look at your brain, it would be like you were composing a symphony, right? If you're really tapped into that, because it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, right? You can be an artist of organization. You can be an artist of, like Roger, of setting up all the technology, right? An artist of networking, right? And so if you can switch into that, it's how you're doing your business as an artist. That's like switching your capacity in an instant. So here's a quick way to do it. Does anyone remember this puzzle from the 1940s where you must draw 4 straight lines that go through all 9 dots? Does anyone remember that? And who knows how to do it? How do you solve this riddle? Yes, Michelle?
You have to go out of the box.
You have to draw outside the box, right? So that's where the term think outside the box came. Now, back in the 1940s, how many people in the population could figure out that riddle who'd never done it before? What percentage? Anyone care to venture a guess?
2%.
Yeah, it was about 2.3%, exactly. And so why do you suppose that is? Why can't people automatically just think outside the box and be all innovative and creative? Repetitive jobs, and also, also our school system is designed to just make you work really well in a factory. Now that's changing, but certainly when I was in school, I mean, you don't draw outside the lines, right? Unless you got some other influence, unless you did any kinds of artistry in your life. So if any of you have studied any kind of artistry, this helps develop that capacity in your brain. And so the cool thing is, anyone can switch on the artist's brain capacity in an instant. So what conditions, because I know we have a lot of wise people in this room, help people think outside the box? What conditions do you have to give yourself personally, or if you're having a little team and you go, let's think outside the box, people? Yes.
Survival.
Survival. Oh, yes. There's a really important goal. Yes, like with a deadline or something. That helps. Yes.
Yeah, get out of comfort zone.
Get out of your comfort zone, right? So you invite people to get out of their comfort zone. And that actually, you need to create a safety to get outside your comfort zone too. Yes, what was yours?
Okay, learn from what the other greats did.
Yes, learn from what other great people have done. So get inspired by other great ideas. Yes. Another one is take your role off, right? Take your hat off, right? Like whoever you think you are. And so what can be really the most important thing, and there's a handout in here to help you do it, a little worksheet. It's called the New Solutions Brainstorming Sheet. The biggest thing that makes the most difference to people thinking outside the box is to separate brainstorming from choosing. Now, I know that's a very simple concept, but people don't do it. Have you ever been in a brainstorming? Like, I run my business with my husband, and we have our little team of people, and we get on Zoom together and we go, okay, we've got to get this project done by a certain deadline. Who's got an idea? Let's think outside the box. One person says an idea, and then somebody else says, I'm sorry, we tried that last year, remember, it doesn't work. What happens to the brainstorm energy in the group? Yeah, it goes down, right? Then people are like, and they don't even realize it. It has it subconsciously, but if you could watch someone's brain scan when they get their idea put down, it goes to their survival brain. Think about that when you're talking about where to go on your vacation with your beloved. No, I don't want to go there. I'll just stop coming up with ideas. So if you can separate it, this makes you do it. This is a worksheet. So what you do is you take your ideal outcome from page 1. So I need to choose the best focus and just take action on my business. So that's what you put out. So that's your focus. That's like your survival, your deadline. And then you just say anything. And it's very important that you write anything down. Like even if it's really dumb stuff or that you'd never do in a million years. So it could be, or you've done a million times. Make a list of all the possible businesses. Market research them. Get feedback. Ask for a dream from my higher power. You know, like even if it's the weirdest thing in the world, just write it down. Post a blog and see how many people click. Interview people who I might end up wanting as my coaching client. Network. 5 years from now, which of these would I most like to do? That kind of thing. And then once you've exhausted everything and you have not edited yourself at all, or if you're doing this with someone else, then and only then do you choose one. Interview ideal client, you do a little, who's going to do it, by when, and that kind of thing. Now, this seems simple, but I swear to God, if you just do it with yourself, because that's why most people don't write books, that's why people don't get going with business, is because they come up with an idea and then they kill their idea, and then they come up with another idea, and then they kill their idea, and then they come up with a third idea, they kill their idea, and so the part of your brain that goes, well, I'm not giving you any more ideas. You're just going to kill them all, so these are my babies, I don't want them killed, right? So this forces you to just get all the babies out and then pick. So those are really, really useful tools that over 23 years of coaching people, they said made the biggest difference, and they didn't hardly take any time or energy. So feel free to use them. One thing I want to do as a wrap up is figure out what we call your dance communication personality style, because we notice certain mindsets and certain marketing skills are easier depending on your personality. Now, I know many of you have done Myers-Briggs, you've done DISC, you've done what's your color, what's your hairstyle. Like there's 147 of these personality styles. But this is one we developed for how you communicate. We originally did it for how you are as a public speaker, but it's really how you talk one-to-one also about your business. So we'll do a quick and dirty test to see what you are, and I'll also tell you how to get the full quiz. So the benefits are it will stop you marketing yourself in ways that don't work, because often people take on styles of marketing that actually don't work with their personality, and then they don't get anywhere, and then they think I'm not a good marketer, but really they just needed a different system. You can build rapport more quickly if you know all the styles, and you can convert up to 75% more prospects by doing this. So here's your quick and dirty test. So you'll see on your page, you're going to do 2 X's on your page. So the first one is the one that goes down the center. And you're just going to put an X whether you're more people-oriented and open, or whether you're more task-oriented or reserved. So, you know, you love people, and you're the type of person that will post anything on Facebook, and you'll tell anyone anything about yourself, that your X would be way up at the top. Or if you're more task-oriented, you're good with things and numbers and analyzing data and getting everything packed in the car so that it fits, you'd be way down here. Now, try to put yourself one side or the other. This is your default style when nobody's watching. Don't put yourself right in the middle, just for the sake of this. So hopefully maybe you put an X there. The second continuum, you do another X. So direct, if you're way over on the direct, fast-paced side, you talk fast, kind of like me, and you move fast. And your gestures and everything are really fast. And you tend to speed. And you're very direct. You go, my car broke down. I need to get to the airport. Give me your keys. And you just go for what you want. If you're way on the other end of the spectrum, you would be more sustained pace. You know, people are just more casual and slower paced as they speak and they talk and they move. And you're more indirect. You say, gosh, my car broke down. I have to get to the airport. Suggestions, right? So you're just more indirect about what you want. So put an X on the second line, and then connect your X's. So you'd end up either as a demonstrator, narrator, contemplator, or asserter. So who is a narrator? Yeah, you think, who's still figuring it out? Okay. Who's a demonstrator? Okay, great. Who's an asserter? Yes, cool. Who's a contemplator? Okay, so we have a bit of everybody, and that's pretty normal. If you're really good at all of them, which many of us do tend to be over time, you can switch depending on what's going on. What we're called the E in dance is the expert. But here's how to recognize. So it's easier to recognize with somebody else. So think if you're at a networking event and you meet someone who's very talkative, very gesticulatory, kind of restless, can't sit still very long. That might be a demonstrator, very demonstrative. That tends to be me. So you might recognize yourself. The asserter is more formal. And they have a erect posture, strong stance, very strong energy, kind of the leaders of the world, right? Narrators, very good, the storytellers, and more casual. They get along really well with people, kind of a friendly, casual, easygoing style, easygoing posture, welcoming kind of people. Contemplators are more the quiet, reserved, studious, analytical types, great problem solvers of the world. So we're familiar with these 4 types from other kind of 4 personality styles, right? The expert shifts depending on the situation. So let's look at marketing strengths. So obviously, demonstrators do get pulled towards public speaking videos, networking webinars, public relations. They don't mind being the spotlight. They love people, so they're out at networking events. So that's a good place to start if you're a strong demonstrator. And probably what you wouldn't want to do are say your opposite, which is the contemplator. The asserter is very good at the outbound calling. They're not afraid to do the cold calls. Public speaking, they're very good at asking for the close. They're probably good at webinars too. They like contests, anything that's sort of a competition. They'll just get all jazzed up by that. Whereas narrators they don't as much like to do big public speaking where they can't see or know anybody, but they'll be good at like a home party or pulling a bunch of people together and facilitating discussion. They love the networking, face-to-face discovery calls, say on video conferencing, and social media because they can not be in the public eye, they be in the background, but it's creative. And contemplators are really good, and have lots of people tell me, oh my God, this freed me up, is they're good at the free strategy session where they solve your problem and prove that they can help you. Good with email, social media. They're good at going to the online forums and solving issues for people to prove their value. So what you wouldn't want to do is necessarily go out and do public speaking if you're a narrator, contemplator, strong. Now, that said, I've taught public speaking to many narrators and contemplators, and they make some of the best public speakers. So if they're very well planned, they do very well. So if I go into way more detail on this full dance quiz, which you can get at artistryofchange.com, or if you are here and you want to just fill out this card, this little card that's inside your handout package, and you can write something like, what's your biggest takeaway from this presentation? And you could tick off, sign me up for your e-zine, and you get the quiz. And if you think this would be a good presentation for some other group you know, little marketing tip for anyone who does speaking, always a good thing to ask your audience, is there any other group you think this would be a good presentation for? Because that's how you get more speaking. And then you give your name and email, and you can give that to me, and I'll make sure you get the quiz. So it goes a lot more detail into all those styles, and you can do the full quiz, and you can see what's your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and you can try it with other people. So just one last question for you is, what is a habit you could adopt in the next week that would help you become more of a high achiever? And it could be something you know to be true for you in your life, or it could be some ideas that we talked about here. I find just start your day with what's my ideal outcome instead of what am I worrying about. Just write it down each day for 2 weeks. Another one is ask myself what went well today just before bed, because what do most people do just before bed? Oh, I didn't get all those 17 things done today. Oh. And that makes you feel less rejuvenated when you sleep. And then you tend to wake up in the morning in a more positive state. Then you could use the new solutions brainstorming sheet and pick something like cash flow on Friday. So give yourself a time and a specific focus. Do the Exploring Your Why worksheet on Monday. You could try use the dance communication quiz with my team or with myself or something fantastic. So you're just going to turn to the person next to you or behind you just for a moment, and just for like 10 seconds, tell them one thing you're going to try, one thing in the next 10 days to be more high achieving. Ready, go. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, I suggest that you write something down, at least one idea, because that way you're more likely to do it. So write it down and make sure you do it so that you start the snowball and you start to write the neural pathway by action. That's what writes the neural pathway. So do that. Okay, let's come back. Now I know some of you are like, you hadn't quite gotten it out of your mouth, but we'll stay afterwards and you can tell the person. But what happens when you take action is it starts to write the neural pathway a little bit stronger. If it just stays as an idea, it will not, you'll just go back to the old way. So do those little actions. So my contact info is artistryofchange.com. If anyone wants a free strategy session, they can apply for one. We only have so many spots, but Carla at artistryofchange.com. And I'm going to turn it back over to Roger before we do a final wrap up. Yay, Roger.
Come on into my box. We'll share this box. Carla, that was wonderful. I'm beginning to feel like a high achiever already. And tell us, thank you very much for making this production possible.
Thank you, Telus. So